through that.
And then the sciencey part of this, if you hit trees, you go slower when you hit trees.
Yeah.
And if you dab, you also go slower. So that's science that we did.
It's been a while since Intense released a new bike, but when they did, this Spider was highly anticipated. So this is a 130 travel bike using JS tuned suspension, carbon frame. We have a custom build behind us picked out by Mike. This put it at 7,600 bucks American. We have a size large. It's got a 475 reach and 435 chain stays. This is quite the bike.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it's really progressive geometry as far as very modern for 130 mil travel front and rear at 65-degree head tube angle, 78-degree seat tube angle. It's pretty slack and pretty steep. We'll start with climbing as far as how those numbers shook out on the trail. I found climbing-wise, it was more energetic and more kind of sporty than I anticipated. You know, like again, on paper, if you looked at the numbers, kind of almost enduro-y type things, but on the trail, it wants to go fast. It wants you to get up out of the saddle and sprint. It definitely feels closer to that kind of down country. I don't want to say that term too much. We're only allowed a few times during this field test, but light trail bike, I think it's kind of in that category. Pretty efficient feeling. It doesn't quite take the edge off the, off the chunkier stuff compared to something like the Revel. Same amount of travel, but this one could be a firmer compression tune, could be something to do just the suspension layout, but you definitely feel the impacts. It's still working, but it's definitely, just wants you to stand up a little higher in the travel.
Yeah, it takes a little bit to break into the travel, and so I found myself not using the climb switch very much at all. On technical sense, it doesn't really take away any of those mistakes. If you bobble, you're gonna know about it. But that being said, the BB is relatively low, but it does stay up off the ground quite well, and so you're not bobbing through the suspension. It's a very sharp bike, and it really, if you pick the right lines, if you're strong in your line choices, it really propels you up those hills.
Yeah, it was, in our challenges, it was the top of the climbing challenge, so that shows something. That was a pretty techie climb. I did that one, but I did get to the top quickest on this bike, and you can see that's a bike you could almost use at a little local race. It's not an XC bike, but if you wanted to, it wouldn't feel totally out of place. It has a pretty steep seat tube angle, which I like. There is such thing as a seat angle that's too steep. It could put too much weight on the front, and you're kind of pushing too hard on the handlebars. It hurts your wrists. I didn't have that with this bike, and a lot of our rides started with a pretty flat approach to the trails, and the trails here aren't super steep, so you are spending a lot of time kind of more rolly terrain. So even though that might seem kind of extreme, I didn't find that to be the case.
It's almost a dichotomy of sorts, but this bike really covers ground quickly, and I think some of those numbers translate well into descending, because this turned out to be one of the fastest bike in our time section as well. So that 65-degree head tube angle and the BB drop, you really feel like you're down in the bike, and it gives you a very secure feeling. Cornering, you're really close to the ground, almost like a trail slalom bike, if you will. But that being said, those same elements in the climbing come over into the descending as well, where you do make mistakes. You feel the frame being a little firmer, the suspension being a little rougher, so more demanding to ride, but it can be pushed.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of be a little bit more on top of it. Kind of pointier was the adjective that came up. Again, you look at the numbers, you think it's mini enduro. It's not mini enduro. It's just a modern geometry and a bike that has some sharp handling to it. So just have to kind of pay attention. But if you're a confident rider and pick your lines, you can really carry some serious speed with this bike. Yeah, so brand new frame design for Intense. We've been living with this for the last couple of weeks. Any issues come up? Anything that was good, bad?
Lighter frame, no in-frame storage, the one water bottle mount. I did find that the climb switch was harder to reach when you have the bottle installed there, so it's literally right underneath, right behind the bottle. Not that you use the climb switch a lot, but I think, being a trail bike, this is something people are going to be looking for, right?
Yeah, I never noticed it really until I thought about it, because again, we weren't using it that much, but if you're someone that likes to use that for paved sections, it's a little harder to reach. Another thing to note is that if you want to run a really long travel dropper post, you might not be able to, depending on your leg length. This bike, we have size large. I spec'd it originally months and months ago when it showed up. It has a 210 millimeter dropper post, which is sweet for me. Matt's legs are a little bit shorter than mine. Couldn't really get the seat seat height exactly where he wanted because it has an interrupted seat tube. So, this would take a 180, which I think is acceptable for it. If you do want to run the most amount of drop possible, probably can't do it due to that interrupted seat tube.
Yeah, could be something to keep an eye on for riders who choose a size small or a medium frame. That could be an issue there.
Yeah, nice quiet descender. Got that SRAM mechanical transmission on there. Not too much chain slap. Overall, pretty nice on the trails. We did have the axle came loose a couple times on Dario. He was just out there riding the bike, doing Dario things, and he had to tighten it up a bit. It does have kind of a interesting quick release style axle, so you don't actually need a tool to tighten it back up. But neither you or I had it come loose on us. So just something to keep an eye on. Check your axles once in a while. But not a huge issue, but a little note to make.
And then in terms of value, the frame is on par for other carbon frames out there in this travel segment. But Intense does have a frame configurator or a build kit configurator. And Mike, you chose the components on this. Some flashier stuff, but you went with mechanical drivetrain and aluminum bar. What did that come out to for pricing?
It's pretty expensive, $7,700. So I didn't pick the wheels; those are pretty expensive. So it showed up with some fancy race face wheels. But on that configurator, they're still working on the user experience. So it's online. You can kind of bike rotates. You can click all sorts of things. It's a little clunky at the moment. I assume it'll improve, but it is kind of nice that you can just a full a la carte menu. You can pick each individual component, decide where your priorities lie. So on this one, we kind of went with some nicer suspension. I went with code brakes just because this is before motives had even been released. I spec'd this bike so long ago that I can't even remember when. So, but the parts that worked out, these are code brakes, and I felt like they were strong enough and good on this bike. Yeah, nothing had really changed. So I did a good job speccing it, I think. Other than the wheels, I think I would go with something a little wider rim width. Those are 26 mil internal rim. It's a little tiny nitpicky thing, but I'd go something different. But you can achieve a fairly good value with this if you're a smart shopper. But just pay attention to the buttons that you click on their online configurator.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that they've added in the weights for all the parts that are possible too. So if that's something that's up there on your priority list, you can factor that in as well.
Yeah, and this did end up being the lightest weight that we had on test, right around 30 pounds flat.
Yeah, and there's also, some more weight to be saved. You got the mechanical drivetrain on there with the bash guards, aluminum cranks, aluminum bar. So yeah, this bike could get even lighter.
Let's get in the pros and cons. I think the biggest pro is just the overall feel of it. It's nice and light, it's energetic, makes you want to pedal, cover some distances. Feels pretty grounded in the sense that it just kind of covers terrain.
Yeah, I always felt locked into this bike where, my hands, my feet, everything was close to the ground. And so it did make cornering just feel really secure. The balance was great on this bike in comparison to some of the other ones with shorter chainstays. This has the same number as some of the other bikes, 435, but there's just some special element about this bike that really helped it corner.
Yeah, it looks good too. Obviously looks aren't everything and you shouldn't judge a book by its cover and all that stuff, but look at it. Looks really good. Low slung, it's kind of like that trail slalom bike is what we kept calling it. So, that counts for something. So points for the looks.
Yeah, cons, that being said, once you get into rougher terrain, steeper terrain, this bike is more demanding. It's maybe not pointy is the right word. You really have to muscle the bike around or kind of hang on to it a bit more. It's not going to forgive those mistakes. It's definitely not a bike you're going to take to a rough bike park or a downhill track by any means. So you can't really be complacent in riding this bike.
Yeah, it's not a bike for plowing. It rewards precision. If you're kind of a precision rider, you'd like to pick your line and stay on it, it could be a really good one. But if you're someone just kind of wants to hold on and pray, it's not gonna work out that well.
And that brings us to who this bike is for. I would say best suits somebody who's riding in a zone with flatter, smoother trails that wants the most response when they get on the gas.
Yeah, if you're someone that just wants to kind of pump all the backsides of rollers and just kind of generate speed that way, just go quick, Spider can do it.
That wraps up the review on the Intense Spider. Be sure to stay tuned for the roundtable discussion to see how that stacks up against all the other bikes on test here.